The news came of his deal the day after the top 10 was unveiled by the NFL of its annual top 100 player list as determined by the players. I remember a time when this was a big deal. And it feels like every year it becomes less and less significant. Like this year, the first 90 from 100 down to 10 were unveiled on NFL Plus, and then the final 10 was dropped on NFL Network. I mean, look, I'm not saying anything controversial. The NFL seems to have been clawing back NFL Network and scaling it down and getting ready for this inevitable merger or whatever they're going to call it with ESPN that still hasn't been finalized yet, presumably because the NFL has a habit for always wanting a little bit more, so they haven't called the ball yet. So the top 100 list is still a thing, but it's not nearly the thing that it used to be. And it only merits discussion when there's something kooky that happens. And what was kooky, mainly this time around, Tyreek Hill finishing number 1, Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs quarterback, finishing number 4. There was also some fairly profane comments from Jalen Johnson, the Bears cornerback, who didn't make the list at all, even though he was a Pro Bowler and a second-team All-Pro last year. He used some language that we've used from time to time here, but I really am not in the mood right now. I might be in the mood, as soon as 30 seconds from now, but currently I'm not in the mood to do it. So here's why this happens, and this is where we interject a question that we got from John Ardell. The entire world knows Mahomes is far and away the best player in the NFL. Do you think players listed Patrick at number 4 out of petty jealousy? Is it a contributing factor, to say the least? Here's what happens. And this is one of the reasons why I don't have a whole lot of use for this list. I have no problem with players rating other players. It's part of what goes into the Pro Bowl calculation. It's 1/3 fans, 1/3 players, 1/3 coaches. I have no problem with that. The problem I have with the NFL's top 100 list is, number one, we don't know which players vote. And it was explained to me at one time that what they do is, whichever players they ultimately give a ballot to, they basically give them a piece of paper and say, list your top 20 players in the league. So of all the players who end up getting a ballot, and again, we don't know who's getting a ballot. We don't know which players are voting and which players aren't voting. It could be a higher cluster of players from the Rams and the Chargers, since they're in LA and NFL Network's in LA, and maybe it's skewed toward the players they face. Because at the end of the day, you don't face many players throughout the NFL on a regular basis. You've got your division rivals, you've got your schedule formula. You're not seeing everyone. So I don't know who all is voting on it. But when you take a list, when you tell a player to sit down and list their own personal top 20, some guys are going to get forgotten. Jalen Johnson said yesterday, maybe I finished 101. Well, you know what? Maybe you finished 21 on everyone's ballot. But if you finish 21 on any ballot, you don't get no points. It's 1 through 20, period. And then they take the 1 through 20 from all the players who vote, and they put it in the hopper, and they assign points. And again, the most powerful person in any election process is the person who's counting the votes. So who knows how, at the end of the day, I mean, really, do we have an independent accounting firm? Is there any reference to Deloitte & Touche? Is Deloitte & Touche even still a thing? I don't know. They keep shrinking. It was the Big 8, the Big 4, the Big 2, the Big whatever. Is there anyone verifying these numbers? Is there any rigging going on? I don't know. So I don't put a whole lot of stock in any of it. Here's how Mahomes ends up number 4, though. When you think about the 2023 season and how it unfolded, and again, we don't know when players are casting their ballots, but for a lot of the regular season last year, Tyreek Hill was on pace to be the first guy to ever have 2,000 receiving yards in a season. He was clearly the most impactful player on the Dolphins. He was one of the best players in the NFL. And the Chiefs were kind of sleepwalking their way through the regular season. So if they had done this list exclusively and entirely after the Super Bowl, Mahomes would have been number 1. They did it during the regular season, so it's not surprising that Lamar Jackson, who would win the NFL's MVP award for the second time, finished second. Christian McCaffrey, the Offensive Player of the Year, would finish number third. That's why it happens. It's not about jealousy. It's not about anything other than when they say to the players, give me your list of your top 20 teams. And we still don't know which players are doing it. It implies it's all players. I say baloney, it's not all players. Because I'm sure some players say, I don't care about this shit. And just because somebody plays in the NFL doesn't give them some special power to properly discern who the best 20 players are in the NFL. It's going to be affected by their own personal experiences. They're going to be influenced by guys they face, not guys that they rarely see. So, hey, mission accomplished. I don't know that the NFL went out engagement farming with this. This list has been around well over a decade. Well over a decade. I remember going up to Pittsburgh years ago and appearing remotely on one of their top 100 reaction shows. Long time ago, at least 14 years ago. So it's been around for a long time, and it gives us a little something to talk about, usually when they're wrong, not when they're right. But isn't that how it goes? Welcome to the media. They never talk about what you're right about. They only want to talk about what you're wrong about, but that's fine. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.